Welcome to the Delighted Customers Podcast. I am so glad you're here. We challenge conventional thinking about customer experience because I believe that improving experiences isn't just good for business, it's a powerful way to make a meaningful difference in people's lives. Each week, we feature thought-provoking conversations with industry thought leaders from a variety of backgrounds, offering unique perspectives and actionable insights. Get ready to sharpen your leadership and transform your approach to customer experience. Let's dive in. Well, today on the Delighted Customers Podcast, I am so excited to welcome a fellow banker. So excited to have someone from the banking industry. And Tara Brady is the Chief Experience Officer at Provident Bank. Provident serves New York, parts of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and is now quite a large bank. And so excited to have you on the show, Tara. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm really excited to be here.
Yay. So we're going to talk about some fun stuff. In particular, if you're not familiar with it, in banking, there are sort of these mega banks that you probably have heard about, too big to fail banks. And then there's a whole bunch of other categories of banks that are trying to compete and get market share. And we are today going to spend a little bit of time talking about sort of this David and Goliath phenomenon. How can you compete with the bigger banks and share some tips? But before we do, Tara, can you share with the audience a little bit about your role now and a little bit about your background on how you got to doing what you're doing today?
Absolutely. So my role as the Chief Experience Officer entails everything that touches a customer. So the customer experience segment currently have a team of 4, which has all different dedicated focuses: CX insights and design, voice of the customer, journey mapping, traveling the customer journeys and understanding where the pain points might be, removing friction. My team has taken on a leg of our employee experience stool when we talk about employee activation. So how do we empower our employees to be great in front of customers? How do we give them the tools? How do we give them the resources? How do we make sure that they feel supported? And then I also oversee the marketing team. So when we think about that connection to customers, everything they touch, everything they see about our brand has a customer-centric focus and feel because, again, my team is a part of all of those different processes.
Yeah, love that model, the structure of your team, and what a great way to go about making an impact, making a difference, having some influence over those different areas that you shared. So one of the things that we are going to talk about is this idea of thinking about how we compete with larger organizations in the world of banking in particular. It almost seems like an unlevel playing field. If you're not familiar with banking, and may be true in other industries as well, once you get to a certain size, you can literally bring in your own staff to do things like tech, and you can literally have like 30, 40, 50 people and have proprietary systems where typically smaller to medium-sized banks work off of someone else's core operating system, middleware, other software applications for all the different product categories are stitched together, for lack of a better word, to make things happen. And so you have a lot less control and you're sort of at the mercy of what those business partners that are helping you deliver for the customer, however they want to prioritize getting things done. And so I'll let you just respond to that from your own experience.
So the unique thing for me is I started in the big bank world and I went from the big bank world to the smaller regional bank. I've been in the credit union space. I've gotten to travel this lens as an employee and as a customer. So I feel that I have a pretty good viewpoint of what the key differentiators are. The thing that I will say that I think is most impactful about the regional bank and banks of our size is we are very much in it with our customers. And when I say we're very much in it, people say, we are in your communities. All banks will give you kind of that messaging. But I think the unique thing about banks of this size is these things are real. We truly are living in the communities where we work, and we truly are making decisions about you and your personal situation together as a collective. It's not done by the big bank AI, and it's not done off at some random headquarters that nobody ever gets to see. Our group of folks is coming into our headquarters in Island, New Jersey, and we are working together to understand what are the pain points for our customers. What does decision making look like? Do we need to have more conversations, right? So we're not at we don't have the joy of having all of the like fancy toys and the shiny objects. But what we lack in that area, for me, we make up in the human emotional connection. And there's been so much conversation about AI and the speed of things. And, you're going to get left behind if you're not in that space. But I talk to customers all the time. I talk to happy customers. I talk to frustrated customers. I talk to tired customers, depending on what's happening in their personal life. And with banking, there's very human touch points and moments that matter. Crave that human connection when we're dealing with something that is so personal. When we're talking about your banking and your money, that's not something you want done by a robot or a computer. That's something that, when I have a death in my family, I need advice on how to manage a situation. When I'm starting my small business, I want someone who also is working in what would be a smaller business, thinking about and helping me make those decisions. I want to see the person at my bank that comes into my small business and banks. And as I bank with them, they patronize my business. That's the benefit for me of seeing all the places and all the communities that we touch. When you think about those empathy-driven experiences too, so much of customer experience is around those connected moments that matter. Big banks focus on their size and we focus on the moments where we can show up for you. And I think that is a crucial part of the focus of why, not necessarily going with the large bank is beneficial for you as a customer. You have more connectivity to us. We have more connectivity to you. We have a clearer line of sight, right? I'm not digging through millions of customers, right? I'm looking in smaller numbers, which gives me more time to work on what's important to you. And I say that as a CX leader who takes feedback and will take that feedback back to teams and we'll make improvements and changes. And I'll call and follow up and let you know what we changed because Mark, you called me and gave me the feedback. That is one of the most connected experiences a customer can have. And I really don't imagine that's happening on that kind of national forefront level.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And I really like the way you frame that is the emotional connection versus the size and bells and whistles perhaps that some of the larger banks have. I think it's true in banking. I think it's true in other industries as well. They're having similar conversations about, well, how can we compete with the big guys? They have all these millions of dollars to throw at this and all these people to throw at this. And while, it is important to have a strategy around how we're going to use technology to improve the experience itself is really what we're starting with and how we're going to use the technology, not have technology in search of a strategy.
Very, very, very true. You hear conversations a lot about, that AI is going to replace this or technology can do this, right? My goal always, and I've said this several times in different conversations, technology should only make things better for people, in my opinion. I should be able to support you faster as an employee because of technology. You should be able to get immediate answers you need as a customer because of our technology. But that technology shouldn't be the answer. And again, banking is a unique industry in that you're dealing with the most crucial thing in people's lives. You either have enough money or you're worried about making more money, or you are worried about how much money you have and keeping it safe and secure, right? There's such a visceral connection to how you feel about your money. That it is something that, and it needs that human connect. When you need advice, when you need guidance, when you need support, it's just, for me, it's not something that technology shouldn't be fixing that portion of it. And I know people will say I have a very outdated view or an old school sentiment to it, but the customers I talk to are not looking for AI when something goes wrong. They're not looking for AI when their child's getting married and they want to celebrate and figure out how they're funding the wedding. They are wanting to share that. They are wanting to connect with you. And they're wanting to know that, again, in those moments that matter, that their bank is going to be crucial in supporting them.
And so let's talk about this in terms of, so what's the big deal here if you're in the C-suite and you are working, for a mid-sized company or even a larger company, but maybe not a mega bank, and whether it's in banking or not. And we're talking here about the customer experience and the emotional connection that you're describing. If someone were to say to you, which we do here all the time, is like, well, I can't compete with the big guys, and we need to make our numbers, we need to hit our revenue targets, and therefore, and we need to keep our costs low because we got shareholders to answer to, and so we need to look at our operating margins and our return on average assets and all these metrics that bankers use. We don't have the time for the emotional connection, or we have to automate as much as we can. How would you respond to that?
My response would be that that's very, very short-sighted. So I think we all know it's far harder to find new customers than it is to do a really good job of taking care of the ones that you have. one of the key proponents, and this is something that I absolutely love about Provident and about my CEO, is his big push it is focusing on creating advocates for life. How do you get a customer that is so happy and so engaged and so connected to you that they'll go out into their communities and they will advocate on your behalf? How do we have to take those calories and we have to take those moments that matter and we have to make positive impact. I mean, it would cost us so much more to constantly chase customers than it would be to really engage the ones that we have and help them to become advocates for our organization. The other portion of that is that investing in our employees and making them advocates for your organization. They have to be as bought into your brand and as engaged as your customers are. And when you make that investment in not only the human emotional connection of your customers, but also of your employees, you really help impact and change lives. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is more customers that are happy to stay where they are and are not enthralled by the shiny objects of the big banks and not willing to jump ship and like that human emotional connection. No other people like them that are also looking for that. So for me, it would be very short-sighted to just say, hey, we have to go fast and we have to try to keep up versus let's take that time, let's invest, let's build that relationship, and let's create that advocacy.
Yeah. Recently I had Bruce Temkin on the show. Actually, I think that's coming out this coming week. He's come back a couple of times. And Bruce was the co-founder of CXPA. He was the founder of XM Institute. He worked for many years at Forrester before that. And one of the metrics they used was one that looked at success, effort, and emotion, called the CXI at Forrester. And in emotion of the three, customer, was I successful? Did I accomplish what I hoped to accomplish? What was the effort like for me? And then the emotional, how did I feel about the experiences I went through? And emotion, all three of them were important on loyalty, but emotion was the most important. So to your point, if part of the answer, I think, to the C-suite is if that's what's going to drive loyalty, if that's what's going to drive customers to keep coming back and telling their friends about the experience, then there's your financial argument.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very hard to put pen to paper to say, here's the math of this. This is exactly how, and some folks will say, yes, there's the customer lifetime value. There are certain numbers. It's very hard to put pen to paper on how people are advocating for you, but also how important that advocacy is. And the other piece of that is that customers are equally loud when they're dissatisfied. So if you're just rushing to push products and you're rushing to try to hit numbers quarter over quarter just because to hit that number, when those folks are dissatisfied and they're not emotionally connected, when they leave, they're noisy. They're unhappy. They're disjointed. So now you've created kind of anti-advocates or detractors through this process. So it's not just on the front end. I think it's also on the back end of that scenario.
CX professionals know that every touch point matters, but managing the entire customer journey can be challenging, especially for enterprises due to disjointed data, difficulty aligning stakeholders, and struggling to secure executive support. That's where JourneyTrack comes in. JourneyTrack integrates journey mapping, management, and measurement, allowing you to pinpoint friction, optimize experiences, and demonstrate the ROI of CX initiatives. So you can align teams, break down silos, and then you can track improvements in real time. With JourneyTrack, you get visibility across every channel and touchpoint. No more guesswork, just clear insights and measurable results. Join the CX leaders who transform journeys into improved experiences with impactful business outcomes like reduced churn and increased customer lifetime value. Visit journeytrack.io today and see how better journeys lead to better business. Really interested in the position that you identified as a need in the organization that you're going to be filling soon, which is sort of the liaison between the employees and the customers and filling that gap and helping make that connection, bridging that for the ultimate customer experience. Could you describe more about what that role is going to do and what the outcomes you hope to achieve from it?
Absolutely. So as a part of the CX team, we're going to have a role which is going to be called Employee Experience Activation Leader. And their role is to understand what the roadblocks are for our employees to activate in different situations. So say we provide a tool, right, that feels really awesome and we've tested it and it seems great, but when the employees in that interaction, right, they're not able to use it as quickly as they need to, or they can't draw the information they need. The goal is that this person goes out and supports the employees to understand how are things going with the customers and supporting the customers. Do you have access to the tools that you need? Are the tools helpful to you in interactions, right? It doesn't matter if I make the coolest tool on the planet. If when you're in the heat of the moment with a customer, you're like, oh, I can't remember where that, right? We want to avoid all of those pitfalls. I think we've all worked in a place where someone's handed you a manual and you're like, I can't read this manual in front of a customer. So I think that's the neatest thing about this is we're going to take, idea and action based on customer feedback of where this pain point came from. And we're going to build the tools and the support and the training models and the things that the employees need to activate. And then we're going to have someone work on it with them, with the outcome being, again, a better employee experience. We all know more engaged employees deliver better customer experiences. This also allows our employees to have a feedback role and model in the tools that they use and the experiences that they're creating. And I think pretty much everyone feels better when they get to be a part of something versus just, hey, go do this. So I think that's the part I'm most excited about. We've learned so much in my it's almost 3 years now with Provident of just where we thought we fixed something and maybe we made it a little bit more difficult for the employee, right? So that's one of the things we're also going to measure is employee effort score, right? How easy is it to be great in an interaction with a customer? What the ultimate goal is, again, really well-educated, empowered employees who have great efficiencies, my 3 E's of kind of EX and CX, lead to great customer experiences. So I could not be more excited for that to be coming to Provident. I lost sound. I don't know where you went. Sorry. Oh, you're back. Sorry.
It was my bad. I had myself on mute because I was coughing. Okay. Forgot to take myself off of mute.
Good.
Okay, so we'll probably put a commercial break in there at that point.
Okay. Oh, good. I'm going to get a drink too then if we're doing that.
I'm just going to comment on that and ask you another question. Put a little pause in here for myself so I can see when to come back. So kudos to you for being creative enough to think through that position because there's so much great intelligence that can come from employees, whether they're on the front line or behind the scenes a bit, that can really tell you what's going on. That, yeah, there's some operational data, there's some sentiment data that you can glean, but when you hear direct from the people who are serving customers, that's such a great source of information to be able to respond to.
I could not agree with you more. And I think that is also one of the best parts about working at Provident. Since I got here, I've done a ton of journey mapping. And when I journey map, we're doing the UX. We're doing what does the customer feel and what do you feel? And I think that's a sign of engagement and, connection to our culture is every single person I talk to and I say, this is why we're going to do journey mapping. This is the outcome. Our team members, back to the very original about being the regional bank, they care. They want to point out this is painful and this could be better, right? So I don't think anything speaks more to our organization when we think about our customers is that our employees also know that this is a process and they know that these things are taking place and they are eager to make improvements on behalf of our customers, which is also awesome.
That is awesome. Tara, can you shared this? I think this is a great strategy that I don't think a lot of people are doing this, hiring this person that can be that liaison. Are there any other strategies that come to mind that can help small to medium size, start with banks, hopefully the idea goes across other industries as well, that maybe you've implemented or you're in the process of implementing that?
I think the most crucial thing that we can all focus on and really implement on is digestible amounts of information. So coming at this as a former branch employee, there are a lot of things that you have to tackle. In the day-to-day, there's a lot of things that you have to remember. And every day something's changing at a bank all the time. We're always getting new information, new promotions, new campaigns, new alerts. So putting things into digestible, easy to access, tidbits I find to be incredibly crucial for improving this process. And I also just think it goes back to listening to the employees. So I know we're creating this role, but if they're telling you that things are inefficient, and if they're telling you we can design the best CX process in the whole world, if they can't activate on it, and they're saying this is hard to do, or I'm not capable of creating the experience you're trying to do, not listening, we're doing these folks a disservice. We're disengaging folks. We are putting them in possible situations where they can't win the moments that matter. So we talked about how crucial it was that we show up in those moments. If we don't hear them and we don't address what those pain points are, then we're truly setting them up for failure when we really need every at bat and every win that we get in front of a customer. We need every moment to be something that they want to repeat and that they want to talk about. So those are the two things that I've spent a ton of energy focusing on over the last 2 years. We are continuing to evolve and adapt different ways. How do we make it more interesting? As we know, everyone's changing. Your Instagram reels are 30 seconds. How do we get people's attention? How do we make this important? How do we make it usable? So those are the things that, I'm really trying to work on. And I think other organizations and other groups can do similar things. It doesn't have to be this big, expensive, in-depth training or process or binder, but it definitely needs to be something that folks can activate on.
So important to think about that. And I think also receiving the employees' feedback, they're telling you where they're having trouble serving the customers who are feeling the pain. And of course, if they keep coming up against the same problems or similar problems, well, their experience is going to be dreadful, and that ultimately will cycle back to the customer. The question is, they are a great source for you, and hopefully, I'm sure you do this, is how do you go back to the root cause and say, let's just fix this upstream so they don't have to keep doing heroics, because oftentimes we do hear about heroics, and there's kudos given at town hall meetings about, Joanne did 3 jumps and a flip to make this customer happy. And wow, good for Joanne. She went out of her way. She worked late. She worked weekends. We created this report. But the bottom line is, like, you got the best situation to fix it where it originates, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the interesting, based on what you just said, why did Joanne have to do 3 backflips and a cartwheel to get there? Like, why did we make it such a difficult process? And I know you talk a lot about the hero piece, but we should just get to be the awesome person in other people's stories in the bank. We shouldn't have to be the hero in these scenarios. It should be simple enough that, we're going through the processes and the efficiencies that make sense for customers. So that's one of the first things I ask. I think I drove everybody a little bit nuts when I first got here, because everything I get into, I go, why do we do it this way? Why did we keep doing it this way? Like, oh, we've had complaints about this. Well, it's the way we know it, or it's the way we built it, or it's the way the system allows. So it's also being creative and challenging people to think about things differently, being open to change. Or it might feel uncomfortable if we do it a little bit different, but in the end, if it's a better process for you long term, if it's a better process for the customer, then that's a win all around. Because I think at the end of the day, the goal is that our employees want to feel connected to our customers. They genuinely care about what's going on in our customers' lives. The success and, we call them customer compliment letters that we get. Some of the things that our customers say, it's amazing. It's so amazing to hear about the impact that our employees have had on these folks' lives. And it's such a neat way to kind of showcase that. So, like, as an example, we have like an awards platform, a recognition platform. We take the verbiage, we take the actual verbatims from our customers, and we put that out for the whole organization to see. Not only did Mark say he liked this experience, he said you made him feel heard. He felt like he could trust you with, what was going, like those really crucial pieces, so that so often we get stuck in what went wrong or what's difficult. We also want to make sure that we're highlighting you were able to create this amazing moment just by listening to the customer, engaging with the customer, and meeting their needs. So there's a lot of, different ways that we can impact the employees and the customers at the same time. But I think this is removing, again, the hopscotch and the backflips is crucial.
Yeah. As you look to the future, as you think about the bank, and your bank has grown quite a bit in the last few years, you're going to have to scale what you're doing so that you can deliver at least as good or better an experience for your customers to try and drive their loyalty and have them tell their friends and get referral business and all that good stuff. What do you have in mind as the organization grows to kind of keep that personal, keep that level of emotional connection we talked about earlier in place?
So the things that are crucial for me are in improving our CX training and creating those empathy touches and really keeping the human emotional connection as a key point. As we grow, we should need to introduce CX sooner. We need to introduce CX more often. We need to make sure that we help folks understand. It used to be in banking that your customer competed with the bank across the street. They'd say across the street, they do this. Now we're competing with every single interaction that your customer has everywhere they go. We're not comparing bank to bank anymore. We're comparing the most recent thing that happened to me. The customer expectations have changed for how fast or how quickly you can do things, but also, the the piece just around, but also keep me safe. So do things fast, but make sure nothing goes awry. So there's definitely opportunities for us, again, to continue to improve training, to introduce training sooner, and to constantly have reminders in those spaces, right? Inspect what you expect. What gets tracked gets impact is, one of the ways I've always heard it. So making sure that as we scale, we keep that personal touch, right? We remember our customers' names. We know why they were in the last time they were in, but also make sure that we're ready to deliver the experiences that they're having elsewhere.
Yeah, I love that you said we remember what they came in for the last time they came in or called in for, interacted with us. And I think and I'd be curious to get your opinion on this, but one of the other advantages of the smaller banks versus a larger bank, and I'm thinking now about business or commercial clients, is if they're in a business, for example, that's cyclical, like let's say they're cyclical in contracting, and maybe they're a government contractor or they're just a private contractor, and their business happens to be cyclical. Well, the big banks may not care at all. They may not want to listen about the cycles that you go through. But the smaller banks already know that you're going through cycles, and the conversation's a lot different. The conversation's, more collaborative with the bank. At that point, the bank's a partner of yours, a business partner of yours. They're invested in you if they've either lent you money or offered a large line of credit, for example. So what are your thoughts about that as being a really important advantage as a small bank?
So what you just shared is actually such a crucial part of what we do at Provident, and we do customer highlight videos where we go out to a business that we've created a great kind of relationship with, and we highlight their business and they talk about their relationship with Provident. And one of the videos that I got to be a part of, and one of the neatest things I've ever heard a customer say, was, when all of the other banks looked at me in black and white, you looked at me in color. You came out to my place of business. You learned about what I did. You didn't just look at the books. You didn't just say, hey, here's the numbers. You took the time to invest in me, to understand my business and the value. And for that reason, I can't imagine banking anywhere else. Like, that's the level that you're getting, where the larger scale folks might go, yeah, this doesn't make sense. I'm looking at this. This isn't connected. But we'll take the time to get to know you. We want to understand where you are today. We want to understand where you're going, and we're willing to make the investment in you as a customer to learn about you and to connect those dots. So that's the neatest thing. Again, having a customer say this unscripted, this was his feeling, this was his opinion, was an absolutely amazing testimonial, but also that was the impact he had. The big banks just weren't interested in what he was doing.
What a great story. And I think it's true in banking. I think if you're listening and you're in a business where you think, you just can't compete because they've got all these people and money and locations or whatever, hey, you've got a very unique advantage because, as you mentioned, with the people who call in want to know that when what they called in about the last time, they don't want to have to repeat it. This idea of know me extends to business loans, and it extends to all sorts of different things where you have a competitive advantage because the large companies, you're much more like a number, right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
No, I think and again, we hear that directly from our customers. I want to go someplace where the bank knows who I am. I've been with your bank for years, 20 years, 50 years. Like that's a pride point. So when you talked about partnership and connection, there is something about the bank that helped you open your small business. There is something to the bank that was there when you had to send your child to college and you weren't sure and you had to move through those processes. There's something to the bank that supports you in buying your first home. Like I keep saying moments that matter, but these are such crucial points in people's lives. And that's another neat thing. Provident's been around for 185 years. So like we've been through it. We survived, the PPP loans and had such great feedback about how we got into the weeds with customers and got them supported and got them what they needed. So, our tagline is commitment you can count on. And we very much mean that when you need us, you have our commitment. You can count on us and we're going to support you and we're going to help you.
Well said. Well said. Tara, I'd love to continue talking. We'll have to have you back on the show, but we have to land the plane now.
Okay.
And I want to end with the same question that I ask all my guests at the end of the show, which is, what delights you as a customer?
I think the thing that delights me most is people trying. I'm gonna back into this. The thing that delights me least is when people say, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or they make absolutely zero effort. I understand that in the service industry, the pay might not be great and people deal with all kinds of things every day, all the time. But the simplest interactions, if you are kind, if you are friendly, if you are making eye contact, if you're engaging, and if you try, if you go out, some people say go out of your way to please. I don't need a grand gesture, but I greatly appreciate when people put in effort to connect with you. Now, do I have my I expect this at certain places? Absolutely. But I think it's easier to delight customers than people represent. I do. I enjoy the human emotional connection. So a smile, people say your name, they repeat your name. I think that's crucial to connecting with people. So, it's for me, it's the little things that really seem to go a long way.
Love it. Love it. Tara, congratulations on the great work that you're doing at Provident Bank, and thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I really had a great time. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Delighted Customers podcast. It would mean so much if you would take a moment to subscribe. You can go to Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts, click on the plus sign or follow button, and that will ensure that you don't miss an episode, and it helps get the word out to others. While you're there, I'd love it if you'd leave a 5-star review. I look forward to seeing you back here next Thursday.